Okay, this lesson video is on the distributive property multiplying rational numbers. So here we have an expression to simplify. 3 times negative 4 plus 7. We'll use the distributive property of multiplication. Note that a positive times a negative is a negative. And that a positive times a positive is a positive. So now we have negative 12 plus 21. The rule for adding integers when they're opposite signs is to subtract the smaller number from the large number and use the sign of the larger number. 21 minus 12 is 9, and the sign of the larger number, 21, is positive. Let's try another one. Negative 6 times 3 plus 7. Again, we'll use the distributive property. Negative 6 times 3, negative times a positive is a negative, negative 18. And again, we have a negative times a positive, which will equal a negative. So we'll have negative 42. Negative 18 plus negative 42. The rule for adding integers when they're the same signs is to add the numbers together and use the same sign. Negative 18 plus negative 42 is negative 60. In this one, we're subtracting rather than adding. Negative 5 times 3 minus 4. You're going to recall the rule that when you subtract, you add the opposite. So now we have negative 5 times 3 plus negative 4. We use the distributive property. We note that a negative times a positive is a negative, negative 15, plus a negative times a negative is a positive, so we'll get positive 20. Negative 15 plus 20. The rule for adding integers of opposite signs is to subtract the smaller number from the larger number and use the sign of the larger number. Negative 15 plus 20, 20 minus 15 is 5. Sign of the larger number 20 is positive. Let's try this one. 7 times negative 5 minus 2. Recall the rule that when you subtract, you add the opposite. So now we have 7 times negative 5 plus negative 2. We use the distributive property. We note that a positive times a negative is a negative. Positive times a negative is a negative. So now we have negative 35 plus negative 14. And the rule for adding integers when they're the same sign is to add the numbers together and use the same sign. 35 plus 14 is 49. They're both negative, so the sign is negative. And the last one we'll try is 4 times 8 minus 3. Again, recall the rule when you subtract, you add the opposite. So we have 4 times 8 plus negative 3. We use the distributive property again. A positive times a positive is a positive. We get 32. A positive times a negative is a negative, so we'll get negative 12. The rule for adding integers of opposite signs is to subtract the smaller number from the larger number and use the sign of the larger number. 32 plus 12, or minus 12 is 20, and the sign of the larger number 32 is positive. This ends this brief video on adding integers, rational numbers using the distributive property. Enjoy the activity.